There is a kind of nice that isn't really kindness. It's a survival skill, wearing kindness as a disguise. You say yes when you mean no. You apologize for things that were never your fault. You can sense the exact moment someone's mood shifts, and before they even notice it themselves, you're already adjusting your voice, your face, your opinion, just to keep the room comfortable. People call you thoughtful, easygoing, low maintenance. What they don't see is how much of that comes from fear, not warmth. Psychology has a name for this, and it's not people-pleasing in the casual sense most of us use that word. It's a documented trauma response, sitting right alongside fight, flight, and freeze. Today, we're going to break down the 5 signs that your kindness might actually be that response running on autopilot, and what it takes to finally turn it off. Let's start with what this actually looks like, because from the outside, it looks like being a genuinely good person. It looks like always being the one who checks on everyone else first. It looks like agreeing to plans you don't want to go to, taking on tasks nobody else wants, laughing at jokes that don't land just to smooth over an awkward silence. Here's a scene you might recognize. Someone sends you a short, slightly clipped text. No emoji, no warmth, just a few flat words. Immediately, your stomach tightens. You reread it 4 times, trying to find the hidden meaning. Are they mad at me? Did I do something wrong? You draft 3 different replies before landing on one that sounds extra warm, extra agreeable, just in case. You didn't do anything wrong. You just felt the tiniest shift in tone, and your whole nervous system rushed to fix it before you even understood what it was. This becomes the quiet architecture of an entire life. You cancel your own plans the moment someone else needs something. You take the blame in arguments you didn't start, just to end the tension faster. You stay quiet about what you actually want because wanting things out loud feels like a risk you can't quite name. Somewhere along the way, your own preferences got filed under not important enough to mention. From the outside, this looks like generosity. People genuinely enjoy being around you because you make things easy. But internally, there's a cost accumulating that nobody else can see. Every accommodation, every swallowed opinion, every performed smile draws from the same account, and that account rarely gets refilled because the whole system depends on nobody ever noticing it's running low. The confusing part is that you can't fully explain why. You're not being manipulated into this. Nobody is forcing you to say yes. It happens faster than a decision, which is exactly why it's so hard to catch. By the time you notice you've agreed to something you didn't want, the agreement has already left your mouth. But this isn't a personality flaw, and it's definitely not just being too nice. What's actually happening is a specific, well-documented nervous system response. And once you understand it, a lot of your own behavior starts to make a very different kind of sense. Most people have heard of fight, flight, and freeze. Fewer people have heard of the 4th response, even though it's just as common: fawn. Fawning is what happens when your nervous system decides the safest way to survive a threat isn't to fight it, run from it, or shut down in front of it, but to appease it, to make yourself so agreeable, so useful, so non-threatening that the danger has no reason to escalate. This response usually develops early, most often in environments where a child's safety depended on managing someone else's emotions. Maybe that meant reading a parent's mood the second they walked in the door, adjusting instantly to avoid conflict. Maybe it meant becoming the family's emotional peacekeeper, the one who smoothed things over so the household could stay calm. Nobody sat that child down and explained the strategy. Their nervous system built it automatically, the same way a hand pulls back from something hot before the brain consciously registers pain. Here's the part that makes this so hard to see in yourself. The strategy worked. It kept that child safe. So the nervous system kept it, filed it away as a reliable survival tool, and carried it forward into adulthood, applying it to every relationship, every group, every mildly tense conversation, whether or not real danger is actually present. And that's the core problem. Fawning doesn't check whether the current situation is actually dangerous. It just recognizes patterns that resemble old danger, even faintly, and fires the same old response. A slightly short text message, a raised eyebrow, a pause before someone answers. None of these are threats, but to a nervous system trained on genuine emotional volatility, they can register as one, and the appeasement response kicks in before conscious thought has a chance to catch up.
So how does this actually show up day to day? Let's walk through the 5 signs, because once you see them clearly, a lot of your own patterns will suddenly click into place.
Sign 1. You say yes before you've actually decided. Someone asks a favor, and yes leaves your mouth before you've even checked in with yourself about whether you have the time or energy. This isn't generosity moving fast. It's your nervous system skipping the decision-making step entirely because pausing to think felt, at some point in your history, more dangerous than simply complying. Sign 2. You apologize for things that aren't your fault. Someone else is late, and you say sorry. Someone else bumps into you, and you say sorry. This reflex isn't really about politeness. It's a preemptive strike, an attempt to diffuse tension before it has a chance to build, even tension that has nothing to do with you. Sign 3. You can read a room better than you can read yourself. You know instantly when someone's energy shifts. You can sense irritation forming before the person themselves is fully aware of it. But ask that same person what they want for dinner, what they're feeling, what they actually need this week, and they often draw a blank. All that perceptive energy points outward. Almost none of it points in. Sign 4. You overfunction to keep the peace. You take on more than your share, not because you were asked, but because doing it yourself feels safer than risking someone else's disappointment or irritation. Conflict feels less scary than being the reason someone else feels bad, even for a moment. Sign 5. You feel drained after being around people, even people you like. Being agreeable, attentive, and constantly monitoring the emotional temperature of a room takes real energy, even when nobody around you would guess it's happening. Socializing with people you genuinely care about can still leave you completely depleted because the appeasement isn't optional in the moment. It's running in the background of nearly every interaction. If 2 or more of these sounded familiar, this isn't a flaw in your personality. It's a strategy that once made you safe, still running exactly as designed, in a life that mostly doesn't require it anymore. There's also a reinforcing loop worth naming here. Every time you fawn and the tension in a room eases, your nervous system logs it as proof the strategy worked. Relief feels like confirmation, so the behavior gets reinforced again and again, even though the actual danger it was designed for hasn't existed in years. It's not a decision you keep making. It's a loop that runs quietly underneath your decisions, confirming itself every single time it's used. You can't out-argue this pattern by simply deciding to be more assertive. It lives below conscious thought, which means the way out has to work with your nervous system, not against it. Here are 3 principles that actually create change. Principle 1. Insert a pause before you answer. The fawn response moves fast precisely because it skips deliberation. The single most effective interruption is a built-in delay. When someone asks something of you, try a simple, low-stakes line. Let me check and get back to you. This isn't a trick. It's a genuine gap, giving your slower, more deliberate thinking a chance to catch up to the automatic reflex that usually answers first.
Principle 2. Practice stating small preferences on purpose. Choosing the restaurant, saying which movie you'd rather watch, naming a mild opinion nobody's going to fight you over. These low-stakes moments are training reps, small pieces of evidence for your nervous system that expressing a preference doesn't lead to disaster. Start small on purpose, because the goal isn't a single dramatic act of boundary setting. It's dozens of quiet ones that gradually rewrite what your body expects to happen. Principle 3. Notice the urge to appease without obeying it every time. You don't have to eliminate the instinct to smooth things over. You just have to build a habit of noticing it as it happens, silently registering, there's the urge to agree, instead of acting on it automatically. Naming the impulse creates a sliver of space between the reflex and the response, and that sliver is exactly where choice becomes possible again. None of these principles ask you to become a different person overnight, and none of them require confrontation. They're small, repeatable interruptions to an old automatic pattern, and repetition is what eventually convinces your nervous system that a different response is safe to try. Let's make this concrete. Picture someone at work who gets asked to take on an extra project, one they genuinely don't have time for. The old pattern would fire instantly, a quick, agreeable yes, already half panicking about how they'll fit it in. This time, they try principle 1 instead. They pause. They say, let me check my week and get back to you. It feels uncomfortable, almost rude, even though it's a completely reasonable thing to say. The colleague simply says, sure, no rush, and nothing bad happens. That's the entire event. No conflict, no disappointment, no fallout. Just a small, boring, uneventful pause. And yet for a nervous system that expected tension, this moment quietly becomes new evidence. A pause didn't cost me anything. Here's a second example. A group of friends is deciding where to eat, and the old reflex is ready with wherever's fine, I don't mind. This time, they try something small instead. Actually, I'd really like Thai food if that works. It's such a minor moment that most people wouldn't think twice about it. But for someone whose preferences have been quietly absent for years, saying it out loud and watching the group simply agree is its own small piece of proof, logged automatically. Wanting something didn't make me a burden. Neither of these moments feels dramatic while they're happening. That's exactly the point. Change here doesn't arrive as one big breakthrough conversation. It arrives as dozens of small, unremarkable moments where the feared consequence simply doesn't happen, slowly convincing a nervous system that took years to build that it's finally safe to update its expectations. If any of this felt uncomfortably familiar, here's what's worth holding on to. Your kindness was never fake. The instinct to soothe, to notice, to care about how other people feel is real, and it's not something you need to get rid of. What you're learning to add isn't coldness, it's choice. The ability to decide when that instinct gets to lead and when it doesn't have to. The same sensitivity that once kept you safe by managing other people's emotions can become something entirely different once it's no longer running on fear. Real empathy, chosen freely rather than performed out of necessity. That shift from automatic appeasement to genuine, chosen kindness is what this work is actually building toward. Progress here rarely looks dramatic. It looks like a pause before answering a text that used to get an instant reply. It looks like ordering the meal you actually wanted without a flicker of guilt. It looks like noticing the urge to apologize for something that wasn't your fault and simply not saying it this time. None of these moments feel significant while they're happening. You mostly notice them in hindsight, realizing the old reflex didn't fire quite as fast as it used to. If this sounds familiar to you, Share in the comments the moment you realized you were saying yes when you meant no. You're not alone in carrying it. This video is intended for general educational purposes only and is not a substitute for professional psychological consultation or therapy. If people-pleasing or difficulty setting boundaries is significantly affecting your daily life or well-being, consider speaking with a licensed mental health professional. If today's video gave you a little more clarity about your own mind, hit like and share it with someone who also finds it hard to say no. I'm Eco. Don't forget to subscribe so we can keep exploring the hidden corners of the mind together. Goodbye, and I'll see you next time.